LSRW challenges in rural classroom. Solutions in psychological approach. Well, nature has countless ways to amaze us, and villages are one of them. Imagine golden fields promising a lovely harvest, the cool shade of mango orchards, mud houses patterned with lazy vines of hefty pumpkins. Who wouldn't be tantalized to visit such a beauty? But the depiction doesn't end here. There's more than meets the eye. My name is Navi, and I teach English in a government high school situated in a village. Since I've been teaching there for a little more than 10 years now, it has not been difficult to notice what challenges ail the young minds in my classroom when it comes to the whole teaching learning process. Bringing rural kids closer to learning and education is one big challenge. However, as a teacher of English in a rural school, I'm going to shed light on one particular aspect of it, that is LSRW, which I feel leaves an impact on overall learning experience of students. All these four skills are the primary concern of any teacher when we teach English as a second language. There are various activities and tasks that a teacher follows to help students get better at all these skills. Although, more or less, there's always some connection to human psychology when we plan an activity or create tasks according to the level of our learners. But is it possible to make psychology a prominent part of teaching LSRW skills? Well, this is what I have explored in this presentation. Since as teachers, following a set syllabus and exam deadlines, we are always chasing time. Students too have to keep pace if they want to succeed in the examination. But in all this hullabaloo of reaching goals, we often seem to forget the outcome that directly affects the day to day life of students, especially the functional role of language, that is L2, here English. Here by goals I mean the score as a parameters of success in exams, and by outcome I mean the ability of the students to practice what they have learned, irrespective of how well they scored in the exams. Psychology and educational psychology. When we talk about psychological approach, it is important to understand what psychology is and what do we mean by educational psychology. There's a thin line between the two. As American Psychological Association puts it, psychology is the study of the mind and behavior. The discipline embraces all aspects of the human experience, from the functions of the brain to the actions of nations, from child development to care for the aged. On the other hand, as Merriam-Webster Dictionary puts it, educational psychology is concerned with human maturation, school learning, teaching methods, guidance, and evaluation of aptitude and progress by standardized tests. Well, a lot of research has been done in educational psychology that proves how a psychological approach can help teach better. Sarah Mercer, professor of foreign language teaching in the University of Graz, Austria, says focusing on a collective view of classroom psychology highlights the inherently social and relational nature of language teaching. But more than theories and principles of education psychology, I tend to look at the general psychology of my students as human beings and not just as uh, learners of L2. As such, the focus has been more on how to tap into the inner recesses of their mind to bring out the best possible learning outcome. I would like to quote Mercer again here. Every teacher knows that you can have the best resources in the world, but if the learner is not in the right frame of mind to engage with the new language and use the opportunities before them, they are unlikely to do so. Although in a rural school where even the resources are scanty, the significance of utilizing the power of mind can never be underestimated. The challenges can be many and of any types, but the solution lies in the psychology of the learner and how it works with each individual. In this presentation, I'm going to elaborate on what psychological techniques can be used while teaching ELT with special reference to LSRW in rural classroom. Well, what is a rural classroom? Uh, 67% of Indian population live in rural areas. But the good news is that enrollment for the age group 5 to 14 has been above 95% in rural areas. Positive change is coming. However, we still cannot deny that there are challenges. So, what is a rural classroom? Well, I take a rural classroom as a complex jigsaw puzzle. It is almost like a jigsaw puzzle, just like any other class, a mixed bag, but with a more complex structure, internal and external. The challenges in a rural classroom are much different than those faced by other classrooms in any city schools. As we can see, I have put in the slide the family dynamics in the middle of the challenges. All of the challenges arise from the same root. Majority of the parents of kids in our school comes from a section of daily wagers, laborers, and a very few farmers too. Those who leave home early in the morning, reach home late evening, have a meager income and no holidays. Besides, most of them are only literate, and the struggle for daily bread therefore makes them lose the connection with the educational concern of their ward. There's often no serious communication about school and education except for the deposition deadlines. As such, motivation is lost. Although internet has reached everywhere, there's still not that much exposure to L2 to generate interest for learning the second language. All these challenges lead to the biggest challenge for both the learner and the teacher, and it is lack of confidence, which finally culminates into the poor standards of LSRW skills among students. Here I would like to mention some basic principles. Adapted from the 20 principles in APA article, Top 20 Principles from Psychology for Pre-K to 12 Teaching and Learning, Coalition for Psychology in Schools and Education. Here are some of them put in an order that can work better in a rural classroom too. I feel social context come first. We have to understand their social background and then provide them motivation to open up, to spread their wings. Classroom conduct, especially we talk of rural children, it is very important to teach them classroom conduct, general behavior, and manners, etiquettes, and all. Then creativity plays a very big role in teaching ELT, especially in terms of LSRW. We have to check the prior knowledge of the student as well, which helps us connect better with the student and accordingly plan the strategies beforehand. Then it is equally important to develop growth mindset among these kids and self-regulation as well. Teacher expectation also works as a kind of motivation for students, which needs to be focused more. And lastly, practice on both the hands from the side of the teacher and also from the side of the learner. The whole presentation somewhere connects all these nine dots in one or the other way. So here I mean by psychological approach, I'm directly taking uh, psychological implications in teaching, not in terms of educational psychology, the theories, the methods, the new advancements, but as a simple way to understand how we can understand the psychology of the learner and follow a certain approach. For this, we can follow a framework which I usually follow. First, collecting informal data of the learners via a friendly chat, incorporating a basic LSRW test. This test can be of any type: listening, speaking, reading, or writing. But the more important thing is that the nature of the test should be such that the students should not feel any kind of pressure. It should be some kind of very light test. It should not be very difficult for them because it's just the beginning for the students who come up to us um, expecting to learn better, to perform better, And since their LSRW skills are already poor, we cannot put any pressure on them in the beginning of the class. Through these kind of informal chats, we can understand their family dynamics and the environment they return to after school. Because when we teach something in the class and expect that the students will start practicing that, we also must understand what environment they are going to return to. Because their practice depends very much on their family environment as well. Then building a reservoir of local knowledge to use while teaching, because it's equally important to understand the local language, the mannerisms, the kind of humor they use, the phrases, the way they interact with others. It's very important to understand so that we can connect with the students better. Ensuring everyone gets the benefit through a common frame of references, the examples, the references should be such that every student can feel connected. Decoding the patterns repeating every year will certainly help in keeping a mind map of identified group similarities, and it will further help framing strategies required for each piece of the puzzle, that is each group of students. There may be limitations, and there are always limitations. We cannot skip them. So tracking the limitations is also important. And then finally, we have to see how to maintain balance, how to maintain an equilibrium so that each student feels that he or she is getting equal attention. All this is happening on a psychological level. In our kinds of schools, generally teachers don't have that much time to put everything on paper. So we have to have some kind of plan ready in our mind, which we can readily use without looking for something written already. So here we have started talking about techniques that we use in classroom. Silence. Well begun is half done. Well, as you can see in the picture, practicing silence for 5 minutes before each class has proved to be very beneficial for my students. It's nothing new but a practice of the concept of mindfulness. Once, after a lot of chaos in the class, I discussed with the class how their stream of consciousness can reach kitchen of their home or the bicycle they like to ride, they love to ride. All of them started laughing. After that, we together decided to set a 5 minutes timer every day before beginning the class. It has now become a ritual which my students never let me skip ever. And we feel that all the four skills become easier to grasp once the mind calms down after 5 minutes of practicing silence. My students generally like to keep their eyes closed during these 5 minutes of silence, but it's not made mandatory. They are free to sit in any comfortable position. As you can see in the picture, twinning the friendship of L1 and L2. Well, use of L1 in the classroom of L2 learners has always been debatable. However, a lot of researchers and classroom practices have introduced a shift in beliefs. It is one big reason that I switched to using both L1 and L2 quite freely. However, while doing it, the purpose is more to work on the subconscious learning and ear training rather than simply to help students understand the instructions better. I focused on this practice more with the entry level students, that is class 9 in our case, in my school. Since it takes a year before they reach class 10, in my mind, I deliberately take this period as their preparatory or remedial year. The logic behind repeating majority of my sentences in L1 is subconscious ear training. In the beginning, the whole concept of in the beginning, the students were happy with my use of L1 and hardly cared about uh, listening to the instructions in L2. But as I kept the practice the whole year, I consciously began to skip the use of L1 many times. It was now not difficult to notice that they started responding to L2 instructions the same way they were responding to the combination, the twinning of both L1 and L2. The result was that they had learnt many structures by mere listening subconsciously. Gestures and facial expressions, a universal third language. We can say more than meets the eye. Well, gestures and facial expressions is a very universal thing. That's why I've written a third language. While gestures signify more of social situations, facial expressions give way to emotional state of being. Both, however, work as a crucial factor in conveying messages more effectively. When it comes to teaching LSRW, gestures and facial expressions play a vital role. For instance, it helps a lot in identifying and differentiating the types of sentences, like the difference between a question and a command. Just like our tone can help differentiate between the intention of two different sentences, gestures and facial expressions help make it easier for us to understand uh, any sentence. As such, the next time when the same sentence is repeated, the students are more likely to comprehend its nature and meaning faster. Handwriting, the meaning behind words. Here you can see two different samples from the same student. One was taken in class 9th and the other was taken in class 10th. You can see the difference. It's a year's journey of improvement. Over a period of more than 10 years, I realized that the specific reason of the inability of the students to read was that their own handwriting was never taken good care of. As we took handwriting practice seriously, they actually began to develop self confidence. As the letters were now more legible, so the blackboard content also became more comprehensible to them. To enhance the effect and add to their interest, I made sure to write one letter myself in each handwriting copy on alternate days, which they happily practiced. It sounds cumbersome and ineffective, but the small practice made a huge impact in my classroom. It is significant to mention one particular student who came to us in class 9 a few years back. She was at a very extreme low level of LSRW skills. Her handwriting was totally illegible and she couldn't even write a word or let's say a sentence properly, let alone speak or read that sentence. And she was so shy that she seldom dared to show her uh, notebooks or copies to the teacher. Everybody in the school had started feeling that she won't be able to make up to class 10th. However, I decided to begin with her handwriting, and to my surprise, she started taking so much interest in this practice that gradually her handwriting became one of the neatest in the whole class, which further provided her more motivation. And she started paying more attention in everything that was taught in the class, not just English, in every other class too. My observation taught me that the root of her slow learning was not innate. Rather, it was a clear case of serious lack of self-confidence. A couple of years back, actually, I bumped into that student on my way home, and as she told me, she was studying at that time to complete her graduation. Intrinsic motivation can actually turn the tables and work wonders, but it too needs tapping sometimes. Here you can see how her writing had started improving once she started uh, practicing handwriting. It is a sample from the very early stages of her writing practice. Mind clicks, testing memory. Usually, in my class, we remember one thing: to think in images. This is what my students usually do. The entire class is now aware how to look at the blackboard, not just as a blackboard, but as an image they click by the camera of their eyes. They're used to mentally click a picture, keep in their active memory, and recall it from time to time. This is what we can see in this picture, where the students are writing from their own mind clicks with the help of memory. It's fun, and it really works. Gift of the day. A sentence a day makes easy the way. As you can see, there are some names of the students and some sentences that they themselves have provided. As we call it gift of the day, first the teacher gives a sentence to the class, and then one by one, students volunteer to offer their sentences. In this way, we get more than one sentence per day. There is an equal participation of all the students in the class, and there's always a possibility to learn new structures similar to the sentences already written on the blackboard. Art for grammar's sake. Well, as again you can see the pictures, there are some graphics. There's a wheel. You can see using art and culture as tools to generate interest has helped me a lot as a teacher. I experimented with giving creative signatures on improved handwriting, complement completed homeworks, etc. But what happened once? Uh, it was once that I was facing difficulty making the students understand tenses and how to learn the action of verb, that I instantly thought of the idea of a wheel, a static wheel, a wheel moving, a wheel that moves and stops and becomes static again, and a wheel that again starts moving. It looked easier to eyes and appealed to the mind. Creativity can be used as a positive feedback, a kind of reward to students. As you can see in the pictures, we have used art and culture to provide positive motivation rewards to students. Like I said, I experimented with giving creative signatures on improved handwriting, completed homework. Similarly, as we began painting walls in spare time, I offered extra chances to paint a particular section of wall if they showed improvement of any kind in their skills. One of the otherwise taciturn students brought peacock plumes to decorate the walls, and from that day onwards, she began responding better to classroom instructions. The overall result was an increased focus of students on listening rather than simply hearing, and writing with precision in spelling as they double check now their spellings to win a special signature from the teacher. Well, besides many other techniques, keeping a reservoir of local knowledge, as I earlier mentioned, and especially the humorous terms, is one great way to teach them speaking, since connecting with their own language of humor brings them closer to the classroom learning, and they happily and readily participate more in all the exercise of LSRW. Then I would like to mention the five simple R's: replace, reconnect, recall, and renew. When I say replace, it's simply about using English because something is always better than nothing. Students who feel so scared to speak even a single sentence in English find it easier to start with English. So I generally ask them to replace a verb or a noun from their L1 sentence with a verb or noun from L2. Then reconnect the replaced word with similar words. Here, the teacher can also help with synonyms. Recalling the new words at intervals through random sentences that can be done by both the student and the teacher or together. Renew the practice every week. Now let us talk about results. It is not always possible to talk in concrete terms about results when we follow a psychological approach because the results can be more than seen, they can be more than felt. They can be felt more than uh, results are often like abstract. However, I've tried to uh, find out how much these practices have helped my students through a small survey. As you can see, to these simple questions, uh, Has your pronunciation improved? To this question, 81% students replied yes. 9.5% students replied a lot. And 4.8% students replied a little bit. Which of your skills has improved more? 47.6% students replied speaking. 38.1% said it is uh, all of the above. 9.5% said it's reading and the like. Practice of 5 minute silence before each class is good or not. To this question, surprisingly, the answer was 100% yes, definitely. Do your teacher's drawings while teaching grammar help you understand it better? 57.1% students said yes, while 42.9% said very much. Then there were certain statements. I asked them to tick what they feel is correct about their progress in English. For example, 17.6% students, 18.5% students said that they feel more confident now about their skills, and 16.7% students said that they try to answer the teacher's questions in English. 16.5% students said we have learned a lot of new sentences. So, overall, I found that their level of self confidence in terms of speaking, listening, speaking, reading, and writing has definitely increased a lot. We can see that reflection in their scores as well. Here, I have taken some 12 students and their scores in final exams in class 9 to compare with their final exam score in class 10th. And you can see the growth in percentage, especially those ones that are highlighted in yellow color. There was a drastic change, and the growth, as we see, it's only in English. I'm not talking about other subjects because, as I said earlier, LSRW skills, if they are strengthened well, they can help us in all other subjects as well. Here is the references page. And on a happy note, here are my students full of joy. You can see and you can read the confidence in their body language. Uh, I hope you will enjoy this little clip. It was clipped, it was recorded on Children's Day. This is a very small fair organized by the students. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. It's great to be alive and well. Good morning, sun. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. It's great to be alive and well. Thank you for listening so patiently to and watching this presentation as well. And I hope teachers and learners will find something useful in this presentation. And I also hope that uh, I was able to share my experiences in a way that can help uh, teachers and learners as well in one or the other way. Thank you so much. Namaste.